She seemed fine just a week before, laughing with her grandchildren, sitting by the window, sipping her tea like always. No one thought anything was wrong because everything looked normal. But sometimes the body knows before the mind accepts, and it begins to say goodbye in quiet, subtle ways. If you've ever lost someone close, a parent, a grandparent, a spouse, you may recognize this painful truth. They don't always tell you they're fading. In fact, many act completely normal until a series of small, often overlooked changes begin to appear. This video is about those moments, the ones that seem ordinary at first, but in hindsight, they speak volumes. Today, we're going to walk through 7 changes that often happen before someone passes. Changes that may look small on the outside, but quietly reveal that the body and soul are preparing to let go. And we start with one of the first signs caregivers, hospice nurses, and family members often notice: a sudden or gradual loss of interest in food or water. If someone you love, who used to enjoy meals or snacks, begins to eat less, push their plate away, or say, "I'm not hungry," more often, don't ignore it. It's not just loss of appetite, it's the body quietly slowing down. You see, as the body prepares for its final stages, it no longer processes food the same way. Digestion becomes harder, energy demands shift, even thirst can fade as organs begin to wind down. This doesn't always mean the person will pass tomorrow or next week, but it often marks a turning point. A point where the body is pulling back from earthly needs, no longer focused on building strength, but instead on conserving energy. And here's the emotional part most families don't expect. Offering food becomes an act of love, but it can also become a moment of frustration or worry. You may say, "Just eat a little," or "You need your strength," but they gently shake their head. And that refusal hurts, not because of the food, but because deep down, you fear what it means. If you've ever held a spoon to someone's lips and watched them slowly turn away, you understand this pain. It's not just a meal, it's a goodbye in disguise. So if you're seeing this sign, be gentle. Don't force. Offer comfort foods, small bites, sips of water, but most of all, offer your presence. Because in these moments, love matters more than nutrition, and the connection they feel with you is far more nourishing than anything on a plate. Before we move to the next change, I want to ask something very simple. If you've ever sat beside someone near the end, or seen subtle signs that scared you, type "yes" in the comments. It's not just for me, it's for others reading too. Every yes tells someone out there, you're not imagining it, you're not alone, and your heart is not the only one breaking. Now let's keep going, because what comes next might explain a change you've seen but never understood. The moment their voice, once so full of life, begins to grow quieter, softer, almost like they're fading from this world, one word at a time. After she stopped eating, the next thing we noticed was her voice. Not that it disappeared completely. She still said thank you, still smiled when the kids walked in. But something was different, softer, slower, like the words had to travel farther just to reach her lips. And that's how it often begins. A subtle fading of the voice, not because of sore throat or weakness, but because the body is conserving energy in ways we can't always explain. Hospice nurses say they see it often. The voice, once strong and full of life, begins to sound distant, like it's echoing from the back of a cave. Words come less often. Sentences trail off. Some even stop speaking for long stretches, not out of sadness, but because the effort to speak becomes too much. And if you've ever leaned in to hear someone whisper your name near the end, you know how deeply that moment stays with you. It's as if the soul is still trying to reach out, even while the body is slowly letting go. We try to fill the silence with stories, with music, with memories. And sometimes that's exactly what they need. Other times, they just want the quiet. Just your hand in theirs. No fixing, no noise, just presence. And that leads us to the third sign, one that often catches families off guard. More sleeping, more quiet withdrawal. At first, it might seem like they're just tired, needing more rest after a long day. But then you start noticing they're asleep more than they're awake. They skip TV shows they once loved. They don't ask about the news, the weather, the neighbors. They retreat slowly into themselves. This is one of the most painful changes to witness because it can feel like you're already starting to lose them, even while they're still here. You might shake their shoulder gently and say, "Come eat," or "Your show is on," and they barely open their eyes. But here's what many people don't know. This increased sleep is the body's way of preparing. The systems are slowing. Organs are working less. The body is pulling its energy inward, using what little remains to stay comfortable. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they've stopped caring. It just means they're entering the final chapter, and the body is focusing on comfort, not conversation. One hospice nurse described it beautifully. It's like a sunset. The light doesn't just disappear, it softens. It fades gently, and then it goes. And sometimes, just when you've adjusted to the quiet, another sign appears. This time in the way they breathe. Changes in breathing patterns can be one of the clearest signs the end is near. You might notice long pauses between breaths that sound shallow or suddenly deep and gasping. Some people describe a rhythmic pattern called Cheney-Stokes, where breathing gets faster, then slower, then stops for a moment before starting again. It's startling at first. Families often panic, thinking something's wrong, but doctors and nurses explain it gently. The body is simply shifting. The brain is no longer regulating breath the same way it used to. The muscles are relaxed. The signals are fading. And while it can feel frightening to watch, it's not always painful. In fact, many people pass peacefully during these periods, surrounded by love. The best thing you can do in those moments, stay close. Breathe with them. Match their rhythm if you can. Let them know they're not leaving alone. Because here's the truth. No matter how strong they once were, no matter how brave, the end is still unknown, still a little scary. But your presence, your gentle voice, your hand on theirs, becomes the anchor they hold on to as they drift between here and whatever comes next. These changes, the fading voice, the extra sleep, the shifting breath, they don't always happen in the same order, and not everyone shows them clearly. But when they do appear, they speak volumes. They say, "I'm tired. I'm going. Please be with me." And if you've seen these signs in someone you love, or if you're caring for someone right now and noticing things you can't quite explain, just know this: you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. These changes are real, they are natural, and they are part of the quiet, sacred process of letting go. If you're still with me, and this is resonating deeply, I want to ask again. Type yes in the comments. Not just for me, but for every person scrolling through who needs to feel seen in their grief. Because your yes might be the one that makes someone else feel understood for the first time today. Now take a deep breath, and when you're ready, we'll gently continue. Because there are still 3 more signs. And the next one is something most people miss until it's too late. A sudden wave of restlessness, confusion, or agitation, often just days before goodbye. And then came something we didn't expect. Not sleepiness, not silence, but the opposite. One morning she became restless. She kept moving her hands, adjusting her blanket, reaching out for things that weren't there. Her eyes darted around the room like she was trying to find something, or someone, just out of reach. This is the 5th change hospice nurses quietly prepare families for, but most people don't know about it. A wave of sudden confusion, agitation, or restlessness that can come in the final days. It might look like pulling at sheets, fidgeting, or trying to get out of bed. Sometimes they talk about going home, even if they're already home, or say they need to pack something or catch a bus. And while it can seem strange or even scary, this restlessness often has deep emotional roots. Some nurses believe it's the soul trying to reconcile what's coming, like it knows the transition is near, even before the mind can understand it. Others think it's the brain adjusting to chemical changes, low oxygen, or changes in circulation. But almost every experienced caregiver agrees, it's not random. It's a sign, a quiet, unsettling sign that the end is close. What helps in this moment is not correction, not telling them you're confused or there's no bus to catch. What helps is comfort, reassurance, holding their hand and saying, "It's okay. You're safe. I'm here. Because while their body may be restless, their heart is looking for peace, and your calm voice becomes the map that guides them there. And then, just when the confusion settles, another sign often appears, one that's even more physical. Their skin starts to change, the sixth change, and one that quietly signals that circulation is slowing and the body is preparing to shut down. It might begin with cold hands or feet. Then you notice the color changing, fingertips turning pale, bluish or purple. You might see a mottled pattern, almost like a soft marbling under the skin, starting near the legs or arms. It's not a bruise. It's not an injury. It's the body beginning to preserve its core, sending less blood to the extremities because the organs need it more. Hospice nurses call it mottling, and when it appears, they know the time left may be measured in days, sometimes hours. For loved ones, this can be one of the hardest things to see because it makes the process feel real, tangible, like you can no longer pretend they're just tired or just napping. But here's something many people don't realize. This stage, as difficult as it is often painless. They are not suffering. They are not scared. In fact, many are already beginning to drift between this world and whatever comes next. Their breathing slows. Their eyes may no longer focus. And yet, in the middle of all that, something incredible can happen. Something that hospice nurses often whisper about because it feels too sacred to fully explain. And that is the seventh change, a surprising moment of clarity. It doesn't happen to everyone, but when it does, it takes your breath away. Someone who has been sleeping all day might suddenly open their eyes. They might smile, call your name, say something meaningful. Thank you, I love you, I'm okay, I see them. These brief moments, often just hours or minutes before they pass, are called terminal lucidity by doctors. But families call them miracles, because in those final moments, it feels like the person you love returns, not as the fading version you've been watching for weeks, but as the vibrant soul you've always known. Their words may not be long, their eyes may not stay open for long, but for that brief moment, the fog lifts, the light returns, and then, often peacefully, they go. Not always right away, sometimes hours later, sometimes in the quiet of the night when everyone else is sleeping. But in your heart, you know, you've seen it, you've felt it, that one last goodbye, that one last spark of them. And if you've ever experienced that moment, it stays with you forever. And maybe that's the hardest part, not just watching the changes, the voice, the sleep, the breath, the restlessness, the skin, the silence, but realizing this is the final story they'll tell with their body. And you were there to witness it. You were there for the last chapter. That's an honor. It's also a heartbreak. And if you're carrying that today, if you've watched someone go through these changes and it still lingers in your chest, I want you to type yes in the comments. Not for me, but for the others who feel the same ache. Because your yes is a quiet hug to someone reading this video title at 2 a.m., crying in the dark, wondering if what they saw was normal or if they did enough. You did. You were there. You loved them through the changes. And that's everything. And if this video has helped you, if it gave you language for something you couldn't explain, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe. Because we talk about these things, we give gentle, honest words to the things most people are too afraid to say out loud. And we remind each other that even though loss is real, so is love, so is memory, so is healing. In the end, we all fade. But with the right care, the right understanding, and the right support, no one has to fade alone. So let's keep walking this journey together.